Hi, this is Chris at SRQ Fishing Oasis again. Today I'm going to show you how to wrap a guide on a rod. A lot of people think that you tape the guide on the rod. You don't tape it on, you wrap it on with thread. And I'm just going to show you, a couple basic techniques about wrapping and hope you learn something. We're working on a kind of an older rod here. I think it's an old Shakespeare. It's probably 30 years old, but still worth fixing. What I take is a thin masking tape and I tape the foot of the guide down. A lot of people will use just a regular size masking tape, just the regular 1/2 inch or whatever it is, 1 inch thick or 3/4. I don't know what they are, but anyway, I use the thinner stuff. You can take the bigger stuff and cut it with a razor blade to the size that you want. But what I do, I take this little thin piece of masking tape, stick it on one of the feet of the guides, and then I actually just tape it down kind of where I want it at. It doesn't have to be perfect because you can kind of move it after you wrap it a little bit. But I want to tape it down. And then I take my thread, and I do it a little bit different than most people do. I use these. I put my spool of thread on a bobbin. I think they're called bobbins. A lot of people use them for fly tying, but they look kind of like this. You can get them on eBay or at a fly tying shop or something like that. They usually run about $7 or $8 a piece. And I like to use them because you can hold the thread in your hand. But I'll show you real quick how to do this wrap. Now notice I've taped down the front side of the rod. I've taped down the front side of the guide here. So what I want to do is I want to take a piece of tape and tape down the thread off the bobbin. Tape it on the top side of the guide. And I'm going to wrap the bottom side of the guide. And then I just kind of wrap it over here. Just do a few wraps. Make sure the guide is straight. And then I want to start my wrap down here. I want to start it. And then I want to overlap the piece that I have taped down here. You want to overlap it each time. Make sure you get a good tight wrap, no gaps in between. But you just want to start wrapping over the wrap that you started. Start wrapping over it. And once you get about 8 or 10 wraps on there, then you want to take a razor blade or a utility knife or something and cut this little tag end. Cut it off just like that. And then you can remove your tape and continue your wrap. And I'm doing this by hand now. I normally do it with my power wrapper. It's much faster. But for the video, it's a little bit easier to show you if I wrap it by hand. Okay, now this is the most important thing with wrapping. You always want to have, you can take your thread before you wrap or get a different color or something and just cut a piece that's about, I don't know, maybe 5 inches long or so. It really doesn't matter how long, it just has to be long enough because what you're going to do, we're going to make a loop and we're going to wrap over this loop, and that's what's going to make it to where your thread doesn't come unraveled before you coat it. So you just take a piece of thread and just kind of bend it in half like this to where you have a loop on one side and your tag ends are on the other side. So you'll take this loop and you'll stick it underneath the thread, kind of like that. And what you'll do is you'll start wrapping over that loop. And you wrap over the loop until you get to the end of the guide. Like I said, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. I'll show you a little technique to get these little gaps out after I'm done with this. But once you finish your wrap, you want to just cut your thread about halfway between your actual wrap and your thread spool. And then you're going to take this little tag end and you're going to run it through the loop that you created. And you pull it tight. And with your other hand, you're going to pull on the loop. You're going to pull the loop back through the wrap that you just wrapped over the top. You just pull it through just like that. And see, you've got this end here that you'll just end up cutting off. I'll go ahead and do it now and cut it off flush with the thread wrap. And that's pretty much it. I'll show you real quick how to get these little gaps out in your thread where you've wrapped. I mean, people sell all these burnishing tools, what they call burnishing tools. I use old brushes that I've used and they're no good anymore. They work just as good. I take the brush and you just kind of work it back and forth on the thread, and what it'll do, it burnishes it and it'll take these gaps out of your thread to where they're not as noticeable, or they'll even go unnoticed completely. I'll go ahead and do this other one real quick for you. Actually, first we'll go ahead and kind of straighten it out a little bit, because once you have this wrapped, you can move it however you want. I mean, it's not in fixed position. That's why a lot of times you'll see, I know Flexcoat sells what's called a guide cement, and I don't understand why people would use that, because if you glue your guide down, you have to make sure that it's straight when you glue it down. For me, it's easier to just kind of eyeball it, wrap them, and then you can go back after you've wrapped it and make little, make them perfectly straight. I mean, if you glue them down, you have to glue them down perfect, and I don't know, I'm just not good enough at doing that. But if you can wrap them and then you can move them after you wrap them, it kind of, you have more odds of getting your guide straight that way than you do as opposed to gluing them down first and then wrapping them on there. So I kind of like not using the glue and straightening them out myself. Okay, so seeing how I'm going to wrap this side, I'm going to tape the thread down on the front side of the rod. Wrap over it, like I said, 8 or 10 times, and then we're going to take our razor blade and cut this little tag end off, and we can take our tape off. Okay, and we're going to use our loop again. Stick this loop up underneath the thread here, and then continue to wrap over the top of it. Cut your thread, run the tag end through the loop, pull it tight, and then pull your loop through the thread. Cut the tag in and you're ready to coat. Just as easy as that. Usually, I mean, if I'm using my power wrapper, I can usually wrap a guide in a minute or two. I mean, doing it by hand, it usually takes, what, about 5 minutes or so. But, you know, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and it'll save you money. It'll save you from having to bring your rods to me to get them fixed. See you next time.